Well, some new questions this hour about Mexico's long and bloody drug war that has certainly spilled in to the United States, having an effect here at home. This is all following the capture of one of the country's most notorious and most brutal drug lords. Could it be the beginning of the end of the drug trade's violent grip on Mexico? Big question today. Michael Braun is a former chief of operations for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. We'll get to him in just a moment, but we're also joined on the phone by Wall Street Journal reporter Nicholas Casey. He has the front page article in the Wall Street Journal today about this very topic. Nicholas, you're coming to us from Mexico. How big of a deal is this capture of this man?
Well, in terms of headlines in Mexico, that's all you're seeing right now on the front pages. That this man who was known as El 40, Z40, was captured alive, which is actually kind of rare for drug lords. Usually they come down with a fight. The big question is, does this mean that you're not going to see drugs flowing north? The answer to that's probably no. And that's because getting rid of the chief of a drug cartel doesn't mean the drug cartel falls apart. Drugs are a business, so if the CEO of that business disappears, he's got a lot of lieutenants and other people who are going to take over, manage their parts of the business. So with this guy gone, that's good news for the government in terms of being able to explain to the people that they're making some progress here. That doesn't necessarily mean that ends drugs in Mexico.
It was interesting. You made that point about the cartels franchising, if they will, as part of their organization in your article. There's another part of the article I wanted to ask you more about. You said specifically that when this gentleman was caught, and maybe I shouldn't call him a gentleman, let's just call him the drug cartel boss, right? His capture was aided by a helicopter provided by the United States, and the Mexican Marines were actually trained in America as well. There have been a lot of differing point of views about the relationship between Mexico and the United States and where it stands when it specifically comes to security concerns. How would you characterize the nature of that relationship now?
Well, I think the relationship's pretty good compared to how it was, say, 10, 15 years ago. There was a time where on security issues, even though the U.S. and Mexico share a border, you wouldn't call Mexico if you were in the U.S. or vice versa. The American guy might be afraid the Mexican guy was corrupt, and the Mexican guy maybe didn't know anybody north of the border to call because that relationship wasn't there. That's changed. The U.S. is providing a significant amount of aid, helicopters, money, training to Mexico. More importantly, Mexico is taking that, using that. So with this bust, the fact that this helicopter was used, it was an American Black Hawk, and the fact that the guys who were responsible for the arrest, the Marine guys, were trained in the U.S., is showing that, okay, now you can point to some pretty concrete proof that this program is born.
I want to bring in Michael Braun here. You have some experience, Michael, of course, in this area. Are we following any specific model here? For example, is this the model that we used when you look at organized crime and trying to get the mafia out of different cities in the United States? Are we using the model of how we combat terrorism? What model is actually working here? And is this a sign that we're being successful, that we're making some inroads?
Well, I think that we're making a lot of inroads, and I believe if there was one model to use as an analogy or an example, it would be the model of Plan Colombia. If you look at Colombia and where they were at just 20 or 25 years ago with the super cartels in the way of Medellin and the Cali cartels, and what that country was faced with, attacks on their Supreme Court, Pablo Escobar downing with an explosive device an Avianca airliner. Colombia was facing many of the same problems that Mexico is today. But if you look at Colombia today, they have experienced enormous success. And I'm not saying that they're out of the water yet. They're not. There's still a lot of fight left in the smaller cartels that have arisen. And there's still a lot of fight left in the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which, by the way, is a designated terrorist organization, as well as the world's most powerful cocaine trafficking cartel. But the point that I'm trying to make here is the smaller cartels that grow out of completely dismantling the larger super cartels are much easier to manage by security forces, and they don't present a threat to the security of the state itself.
I only have about a minute here, but we have talked about franchising when it comes to al-Qaeda, for example, and how that creates a further obstacle in our war on terror, according to some. But you're telling us that this franchising may be a way that we're seeing weaker units, and we can go after those weaker units?
Jenna, exactly. They're weaker and they're more manageable. You can manage them and you can keep a lid on them. Look, we've been fighting organized crime in our country for over 80 years and it hasn't gone away. But I believe we do a better job than any other country in the world at managing it and keeping a lid on it. And that's what we hope Mexico can get to, much like Colombia has.
Well, we don't want to oversell this victory, but it was something that got our attention and we wanted to talk a little bit more about it. Nicholas and Michael, look forward to having you both back. I appreciate the time very much.
Thank you.